So the article that I sent you called The Great American Poisoning, um, I think the big thing for me in that article was just how many studies have been funded by big food and the amount of taxpayer money that goes to pay for processed food and sugary drinks that we end up paying for down the road in healthcare costs.
That
Um,
we pay for on the front end and the back end.
exactly.
We subsidize the studies and the materials and pay for
Oh,
it with our health.
yeah, that's so true. We subsidize the like corn to create corn syrup and corn oil, and then we subsidize the sugary drinks that the SNAP participants are drinking, and then we subsidize the healthcare costs of all that junk food and all those sugary drinks when
Right.
they end up getting diabetes and cancer and everything.
The the four horsemen:
That
diabetes,
is,
cancer, Alzheimer's, and what's the fourth one? Heart disease.
yeah. So the biggest stat I think for me was the 20% of Coca-Cola's US revenue comes from the SNAP program, and 10% of the entire SNAP program pays for sugar, like pays for soda, and yet you're not even allowed to get like rotisserie chicken or hot meals. Which, I mean, I've heard that rotisserie chicken isn't like the greatest for you, but compared to straight up sugar drink,
You're not going to get diabetes on rotisserie chicken.
yeah. But I actually wanted to hear more about what you were talking about last night with the
Oh
unheated
yeah,
starches and versus like heated proteins and sugar and
I
stuff.
I was actually thinking of okay, so it came with my wife mentioned she saw somebody on the internet, so you know it's true, talk about uh, the restructuring of starches, um, making them into resistant starches. And it was, what was it, amylose and amylopectin. Um, I guess so. When you take a starch like a flour or a fruit and puree it, you end up making the start. You increase the surface area, you remove the fiber, it's digested quickly, spikes insulin, et cetera, et cetera. Fine food as long as you eat it in small quantities. Um, However, what I found, I went back to my favorite, Dr. Rhonda Patrick, and she had an article that was talking about how if you take flour or amylose, amylopectin, and put it into solution, so it's got to be with water, and then heat it up and let it cool down, you apparently get I guess it's not a, I don't think it's like a molecular bond, but somehow the way that the starch reconfigures with itself emulates the form that it would have been when it was in the food. So I guess it's some lower energy state, but it's only in solution. Like has to be in solution. It has to be heated. It has to be cooled, and then you get resistant starch, or I think they called it starch retrogradation. Sure. Um, which actually then makes it so your small intestine cannot process it easily. So when it dumps into your lower GI tract, um, it behaves like a soluble fiber. So I guess you get like 1/3 less calories actually consumed by you, and the other third is treated like a fiber, which anecdotally I thought was an interesting point because when my wife was pregnant with our second child, uh, consistently she loves this dish we call chicken pasta, or not not so bad pasta.
Wait, how do you make that dish?
It's basically the flavor profile is basil. pesto, bunch cheese, chicken, sun-dried tomatoes, and noodles. There's obviously spices and onions and other things in it, but it's kind of the base of it. Uh, so anyway, heavy noodle dish of which she ate a lot and never spiked her blood sugar. With the first pregnancy, we had, yeah, first pregnancy and second pregnancy. First pregnancy, we were eating a bit more junky. And so, we could track what foods actually spiked blood sugar. Uh, Most notably Chinese one evening, but the pasta dish never did, which I thought was interesting because it's heavy in carbs. But
Did you
if
use a
you screw
glucose
this,
monitor for that?
yeah, we had a continuous glucose monitor. She tried the finger
Oh,
prick for a while. We were like, screw this. And by the time you pay for the meter and the stick, you're like 2/3 the way to a continuous monitor. So you might as well just buy the continuous monitor.
that makes sense.
Yep, yep. So anyway, I was like, hey, now that I'm in a really healthy spot, it would actually be a cool experiment to just like take a month and eat pasta 2 out of the 3 meals of the day and see like, do I gain weight? Do I feel bloated? What's the now? I don't know if I'd have to pick a different pasta because like uh, I've got MTHFR, so is the folic acid in the pasta that we have here in America going to screw with me? Like, is it going to confound the test, the study? But anyway, yeah, those are my thoughts.
My wife makes a dish called cracked chicken, and it has some pasta and some chicken.
I'm assuming that's referring to cracked peppercorns
Not
and
crack,
not
crack.
cocaine.
No, not quite. But I will say, I always joke it tastes like crack because it's so good. Although I've never tried crack. No, but it has the same things. It has like chicken and some pasta in it. It's so good. But my question was, what if you heat it up, cool it down, and then heat it back up to eat it again? What
Uh,
what happens?
it apparently holds that whatever that lower energy state is. So it's something about um, just getting it in that first aqueous solution and heating it up that allows the amylose to recombine in a different way. I think I'd like to look up somebody actually explaining from a. I don't know the structure of amylose and amylopectin, but I would like to find somebody explaining the structure of them and how they are connecting in a different form to make themselves resistant to quick digestion.
Hmm. Yeah, interesting. Because
But it's the initial heating up and then cooling down. After you heat it, I think it pretty much remains the same. I suppose maybe if you ground it up or got it really hot, maybe it would like re-separate. I don't know.
wow. Because I was thinking like whenever she makes it, we heat it up and then we heat it up the first time, but we
Mm-hmm.
always have leftovers. We put it in the fridge. So if we're heating it up, putting it in the fridge, it's cooling down, and then I just
Yeah,
heat it up to eat it later.
right.
Be saving on some calories.
Apparently, there's a similar. I don't want to say reaction because I don't know that it's reaction is the correct term. There's a similar process that happens in the staling of bread as bread, just like becomes harder. Apparently, that process is somewhat similar.
Hmm,
But the difference is nobody likes eating stale bread, so it gets thrown away.
that's true. Do you guys get like white or wheat bread, or do you get sourdough at all? Have you ever tried sourdough?
I have tried sourdough. I don't mind it so much.
I think it's great.
Basically, to me, bread is a junk food. Um, so I try not to eat it. But uh, and what we buy, I don't know that I would call bread.
What do you
But
buy?
uh, some wheat. It's it's a wheat bread from Walmart or Payless, wherever we can get it. I don't remember the brand, but um, when I started looking into breads, I was like, as long as the grain is cracked, it really doesn't seem like the, you know, whole wheat with a couple of unground grains is going to do much for me compared to the crappy. It's all got glyphosate. It's most of it's got um, propylene glycol or whatever in it. Uh, so I don't even remember what your question was, but yeah, like a crappy off-brand wheat bread. But also, I'm on a real strict diet and I don't eat it.
Yeah,
So
no, I get that. Actually, well, before I ask this next question, I just wanted to read a specific paragraph from the article because I thought it was really funny. So it was talking about the school lunches. Did you said you skimmed? I mean, you said you read it. No, but did you read the part about school lunch and all? It kind of talked about how some policies were created to help school lunch, and it's really just like pushing sugar foods from the big
yeah,
food like McDonald's and stuff.
when my wife was teaching, they liked to joke about when they got the whole policy passed that pizza was a vegetable because it had tomato sauce on it.
Oh, that's what I was about to read. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, in this, he says, I'm sure to anyone paying attention to the happenings of Congress, where it was, I guess I'll read the whole paragraph. It talked about the food compass and then talked about how Cheerios and Lucky Charms are more healthy than ground beef, however that is. But then he says this, unfortunately, is par for the course when it comes to big food and nutrition funding. On the ground floor, school boards across the country look to research of this kind to inform what's allowed in school lunches. And these are the same school lunches empirically linked to higher rates of obesity. And then he says, what an incredible shock. I'm sure to anyone paying attention to the happenings of Congress, where pizza was declared a vegetable because of the tomato sauce. And then something funny he says is, which is actually a fruit. So I don't know how they got that in the first place.
Yeah,
But I was just like, that just shows how horrible our system is right now with food and
yeah.
medical, I don't know, assistance and everything. But I just want to share that. The question I actually had was you talked about glyphosate. Um, you should talk more about the study that you were telling me about yesterday when you were up at 2 a.m. trying to
About
figure out.
glyphosate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost did that last night too. I almost did my workout before bed, and I was like, no, no, I got to go to bed.
So you didn't do your workout before work?
No, not yesterday. Uh, and so I was like, well, I'll do it when I get home. And then it was like, I don't know, 10 or something.
PM?
And yeah,
Well, then no
uh,
wonder you can't go to bed right after you exercise.
my daughter had a slight fever last night, so we
Mhm.
were monitoring that and
Yeah.
kept us up late. Um, yeah, so there was this paper that just came out 4 days ago, and it is carcinogenic effects of long-term exposure from prenatal life to glyphosate and glyphosate-based herbicides in SD rats, Sprague Dowley rats, which another interesting. Have I told you about my discovery of Sprague Dowley rats?
I don't think so.
We've mutated them. Uh,
Like
it,
we as in America
researchers,
or
yeah.
researchers?
Well, just researchers in general, right? There's a particular breed of rat. I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic.
Oh no, that's okay.
Glyphosate. Um, it's actually a big problem because the rats have extra long telomeres. The telomeres of these research rats that are made to be white, that are have been bred for a long time, um, they have strangely long telomeres compared to wild rats. The issue with that is that I can't remember what it's called. It's a gene that codes for several things, which actually like all genes do. But whatever it is that causes the um, telomeres to be long, or telomeres predict your cancer risk. Because if the telomeres of your cells are incredibly long, you're going to live a long time. But the problem is that means each of your cells lasts a long time. Um, so when you have a cell that lasts too long, it increases the likelihood of mutation. So, like all Sprague Dawley rats die from cancer. Like, not some,
Oh,
all. If they survive long enough, they get cancer, um, unlike a wild rat. Now, the upshot is they last a long time. So you can do longevity studies on them, and like they're not going to die incredibly early compared to other rats. But the downside is everything that is dangerous becomes a chemotherapy for them, because like a chemotherapy is a poison, and you're attempting to poison the cancer cells before your own cells. Well, then there causes a problem with drug safety testing on these rats. So we've mutated these rats. They all die from cancer. The downside is if you're testing a drug or whatever for safety and it actually is slightly unsafe, maybe it's not an acute problem, but over a little bit of time will cause an issue. So it's behaving like a low dose poison. It will sometimes cause these rats to live longer. And you could be like, oh, my drug is, it is
um,
helping longevity. It's increasing longevity of this animal. Well, that's
really
because
just because
the
they didn't
animal
get
would,
cancer.
yeah, exactly. The animal would have normally died of cancer. Um, so anyway, that just makes you feel real confident about everything.
I
Um,
feel so confident.
yeah. Okay. So glyphosate in these rats, they took a bunch of rats, which I was saying that my interest in this study to find out more would be population size or sample size. And I was kind of interested in knowing more of the, um, some of these rats died at 1 year, and I want to know what the human equivalent to that is. But they gave glyphosate and then I believe it was Roundup. And then there's like Ranger Pro, which I think was used in the EU, and another herbicide that they gave to these rats in doses that, according to some EU organization, are considered safe daily doses. Uh, and they adjusted them for rats as compared to humans. And none of the rats had any acute problems. There was no problem gaining weight or getting pregnant or um, uh, feeding of the rat. Like they all behaved normally. The problem was there was a significant, I'm trying to find the portion, significant portion of the rats actually developed a leukemia that is rare in research rats. And then they went on to compare when has this shown up in other studies? When have rats gotten this leukemia before? And of the, I think it was 15 studies they found where they reported these rats getting this particular type of leukemia, uh, it was not deadly within the first year. But in this study, it was. Um, in addition to that, at the end of the study, which is a 2 year study, they euthanized all the rats and then did tissue sampling and dissected them and found that the glyphosate treatment groups had a significant, like 4 times more likely to have malignant or benign tumors and odd growths, polyps, and things. Whereas um, the control group had zero leukemia. I think there was a base rate of odd growths, but I don't know if 2 years in a rat. I don't know if that's the equivalent of 70 years in a human or 60 years in a human. I'm not sure. So it's likely that you get some growth. Anyway, yeah, there's that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, that is a little scary because knowing that everything is normal and then boom, you just get some kind of cancer potentially is like, yeah, I would
Right. it wasn't as surprising to me that they got cancer, but that it was deadly when normally it's not. Like that it was a rare form of cancer for these rats and that it was deadly sooner than in other studies.
Yeah. It makes me wonder, I don't know, like what are the places that I'm going that people have sprayed that I don't even know about? And then
Everywhere.
obviously all the food that
Yeah.
I'm eating. It's like, yeah,
But yeah, bread. Bread is a huge vector of glyphosate.
yeah. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, it is. It is. To play the devil's advocate, though, I know that you voiced that you've got some people in your life that are I'm not going to say pro glyphosate, but
I know you can
see the
say
merits
pro-glyphosate.
in acting. Uh, I'm glad that we're not starving, right? I'm glad that the macronutrient problem is solvable and that we're not dying of starvation. So if I were to have it any way, it would be the way that it is, which is I got to be careful about my risk of diabetes and cancer, but I'm not going to die in the next couple of years from lack of calories. I'm glad that that is the case. There's my counter. I'm thankful for where we are, and I'm looking forward to where we're going.
Yeah, no, that's fair. There was also the other study you mentioned about the connection between glyphosate and the blood-brain barrier and then how it affects people neurologically. Specific, was it teens that you were talking about?
Yeah, yeah, it was teenagers. They were trying to see if there was much effect of herbicides and pesticides on mental health because the implications were education and school and focus. And to glyphosate's credit, they did find that of the five vectors they were checking, um, vector is probably the wrong word. There's probably a specific terminology used for that word, and that was probably incorrect. Anyway, uh, the only one they found that glyphosate affected was uh, self image, I think it was, which to
Wasn't it
me is
just
like,
like social
oh
connection?
yeah, so social image. I don't remember. Um, what was more concerning to me was uh, that they were studying glyphosate and these other things because they found them in the brain. Apparently, they crossed the blood-brain barrier, and they said over 98% of all the teens had glyphosate that was measurable in their urine. Just not exciting.
Was that just US teens or
I
like
actually
even a
don't remember
specific
if that
area?
was EU or if that was US. Uh, Probably US because I know in certain places in the EU it's banned. You can't use glyphosate.
I think at the very end of that article that we started talking about, he said, oh, let me see. Actually, I don't even know if it was this article or a different article, but there was somewhere where they were like, if you ban these specific, I think it was oils, there's like thousands, estimated to be thousands of people who don't die from those oils, which makes sense. But I know that you talk about potentially not using like government to control what people are eating sometimes. So like outlawing those specific, or I guess not subsidizing is should be a better term
Mm,
because if you don't
hmm
subsidize it, it's therefore going to be harder to, or it's going to cost more to make, which means less people are going to buy it, which means less people are going to eat it. But what are your thoughts? Like I know after reading the article and seeing the how subsidized everything is, do you still agree with not or with not pulling subsidies, not pulling subsidies from like corn and soybeans and stuff?
Uh, What do you think about pulling subsidies from corn and soybean?
Well, I mean, it will definitely increase prices. However, if that means that we have to find other ways to find healthier food, well, I guess the counter argument could be we might just find other ways to find unhealthy food. Um, because people will just keep trying to get the least cost that they can for materials. But I mean, I personally think that pulling some subsidies would help to decrease this whole dilemma of people are buying really cheap food that's horrible for them. Instead, they gotta
Hmm.
focus on buying higher quality food, even if it's a little more expensive. But I'm also, I would say, a little better with finances, and some people may not be. So, like, I would know, like, okay, I gotta shift some of my budget over here, whereas some people go shopping all the time and might not have the money to spend on it. But it's also, I don't know. So I don't want to cause another problem, but I think the health crisis is just huge.
Right. Yeah. My I am almost against most food subsidies. Did you like how I was didn't come down
Almost.
firmly on that? uh, Meaning, stop subsidizing sugar. It's not a food. It's a spice, and it should not be a main ingredient. It's fine as a spice. It's not a food. Um, the Just stop that right away. That makes pretty much everything that sugar goes in, you shouldn't put in your mouth. Uh, as a general rule, I don't care if you have a Reese's cup at the end of the day. I think if the rest of your diet were real strict by American standards, one Reese's cup a day would be like a drop in the bucket.
Honestly, by
Um,
American standards, real strict is not real strict.
yeah, yeah, true. Well, I mean, real strict for Americans.
Yeah,
Like an American would go to, I don't know, the Netherlands and feel like their entire diet was real strict. Um, so yeah, get rid of sugar subsidies entirely. Uh, the corn and soybeans is a harder issue, or at least to me, it's a harder issue because I live in the Midwest. So, one third of all the people I know have some tie to corn and soybeans because that's the only game in town when farming. Some people do tomatoes and whatnot, but um, there's not going to be a replacement. If you get rid of corn, you're not going to then jump to tomatoes. Uh, Not unless everybody's going to be drinking tomato juice. So, though I am pro reducing the subsidies for corn, I think that it has to be done over a long period of time. Because there's no way there's no way I know of that you could do it quickly because people are just going to lose their shirts.
yeah,
Yeah, all of our food producers are going to disappear. And so it has to be slow. And then it's got to be real slow, like over 50 years or something, because like farming regime changes don't happen quickly. I mean, these are people's like jobs, careers for their lifetime, and they hand it down to their kids or whatever. Um, and then beyond that, I agree with you. I think if we stop subsidizing corn and soybeans, you've got laboratories and machinery that's built for turning cornstarch into whatever xanthan gum and all these other ingredients. And so we may just move to another unhealthy food.
yeah.
So I think changing people at the individual level is also important. How do you do that? I don't know. I
You're
haven't
supposed to
figured
have
it
all the
out.
answers.
Just have all the answers. Well, the problem, you and I chatted about this. Uh, like I had what was it? I wish that everyone in my family had an acute, um, extremely uncomfortable, easily solvable, and non-serious health problem. Because that was, I always said like the only thing that could get me to stop eating bread is if my doctor said you're going to die if you keep eating bread. So I had an acute, solvable, non-serious health problem that was very uncomfortable, and then just pulled the trigger and did it. I feel great. But could you convince or shame me into making those changes before that happened? Well, nobody did. So, yeah, I can't convince myself. So how do I convince other people? I don't know.
Yeah, that's really true. That's a hard. Well, I guess that's why people who are trying to do it and maybe being successful are getting paid a lot, but also people who are doing the opposite are getting paid a lot. So I don't know. Is it really gonna work? If you were to give one piece of health advice from your experience, what would it be?
Oh, geez.
Boil it all down to one powerful, solve all things type of advice.
Mm-hmm. Oh, geez. I have two of them. You
All right,
can
that's
pick which
fine.
one you want,
That's
which
fine.
is eat real food. Uh, and the alternative would be meat is a health food.
Ground beef is not at the lowest end of the food
Right.
chain.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, the whole eating whole food, I think is just real whole food is the most
hmm
important thing. Like no one puts real whole food as a majority of their diet anymore. It's all
Right.
processed. So
Oh, here's a third one for you. You can choose this one if you wish. What's bad for your teeth is bad for your body.
that that's a good little quote for people to keep in mind.
The things that your dentist tells you not to eat or to brush your teeth after are things that you probably just shouldn't eat.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. That's some good advice. I think we had a good discussion about big food.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
All right. See you on
Okay.
Monday.
See ya.